As is the case for a lot of us, my shop is really just part of my garage. I have a few tables in here, but none of them offer any good work holding solutions, and I don't have room for a full-size bench. So I messed around and made this. We're going to take a look at how I made it and whether or not it works. So I have the Bora Caterpillar right here, and it was given to me by my wife. The fancier I want to get with my woodworking, or the more hand tool work I want to do, this is also becoming more or less just a flat surface that I can work on, and not something that is sturdy enough for a lot of hand tool work. And I can show you why. And it's simply because in every direction, the table twists, racks, or slides as you work on it. And it doesn't take very much pressure to move it. So if you're trying to, plane a board, I do have stops over there in those dog holes. You're trying to plane something and it just moves the table around the floor. And I think that something that doesn't get explained quite as often as it should when people are talking about workbenches is that the whole point that you want a big, beefy workbench for is to keep the bench itself still along with the piece you're working on. Because if the table is jumping around, then so is your workpiece, and your cuts and your chisel strikes are going to be less accurate, and you're going to be spending energy moving the table rather than cutting the wood. Without a whole bunch of space, I was trying these other solutions, and they're not really working for me. At this time, I don't have the space for a full-size workbench. As it is, I have too much clutter, and I can't move it around, and I worry that a full-size workbench in this environment would end up just being another place to gather stuff. A while back, quite a while ago, Jay Bates did a couple of videos showing two different kinds of sawhorses converted into work holding solutions. One of them was with the match fit system, and one of them had more traditional holes, work holding solutions. I will link those videos below. But I also don't really have the footprint or the space for another 5-foot long dedicated sawhorse shaped thing. The space you see me standing in is pretty much a space where I have to move things in and out of constantly in order to get anything done. And as much as the process of organizing my shop has been ongoing, it is ongoing, and it's doesn't ever seem to get finished. And I know people can relate to that, but it does leave me without a lot of work holding options for when I want to make chair legs or something like that with hand tools. What I do have is this Rockwell Jawhorse. I really like it. It has served me well for a number of different things. It's very good at holding long boards so that I can get good cross cuts. And I had it before I had my miter saw, but since getting a miter saw, I haven't used it for that very much. I don't break down a lot of sheet goods, which is one of its sort of primary functions. And so I don't use it much for that. For the last year or two, the Jawhorse has been a stand or temporary stand for my belt sander. It works well enough, but again, I don't need my belt sander very often, so I don't need to dedicate the Jawhorse to that. Where the Jawhorse doesn't work is that you simply can't really work on the ends of boards, and you can't work on especially the ends of wide boards. Because of the way the Jawhorse works, there is a cross beam here, which is what holds the whole mechanism, and that just gets in the way of trying to put anything tall in the jaw. And so I'm sort of left without a way of working on the ends of boards. It's also the way it is not very good for planing. You can try and support the workpiece in the jaw and plane above the jaw, but with the force of planing, it can slide a little bit or twist. And I hit my number 4, an old number 4 plane on the metal part of the Jawhorse exactly one time, and that was enough. I didn't like that at all, so we won't be trying that again. So what I thought I might do is adapt Jay Bates's idea and make a topper for the Jawhorse that has some traditional work holding options. So it's going to be, I've already cut a lot of the pieces. It's going to be a top made out of laminated 2x12 with some legs and supports, and it'll have a Moxon vise on the front, plane stops on the end, and dog holes. I am a little concerned about how stable it will be, but I have options there or workarounds. I can. The feet on this thing are quite. Let's see, they can be modified. The feet can be modified, and I can make them less slippery. But we'll see how that goes. This is an experiment. I don't know if it's going to work. I hope it does, because if it does, it'll be pretty useful. I will give measurements, I think, afterwards if I find that it works, because if this thing's a failure, I don't want to encourage anybody to build it before the end of the video. Main concerns are, anytime I get out over top of the fulcrum of where the leg joints are, I worry about maybe it being sort of tippy. And at this end, I worry about it being sort of easy to push. But we will see how that goes. All right. So the main components are here. This is a couple of pieces of 36-inch long 2x12. And it's been straightened along the edges, and I've planed it, and then I have cut out some rabbets for a little bit more of a face. I'll show you in a second, and the legs, right? So the one face, right? Because I want my vise to be 6 inches tall. And so this gives me the 6 inches I need here for the inside of the vise. And these are obviously these supports. So the faces of the jaw will come together here and hold this whole thing in place, right? Important to note that one end is actually got a taller leg on it than the other, because of there is a half-inch difference at each end on the Jawhorse itself. And then I will screw in some supports so that obviously the jaw doesn't crush the bottoms of the legs, but I don't want anything further down or a full-length crossbeam in the middle, because I need the dog holes and such to have all the room they need under there. The outsides of the legs are 23 inches apart, because that puts both faces of the jaw inside the fulcrum point of the leg on the Jawhorse, right? So I didn't want the points of contact to be out over where the leg starts, right? I think that should make it more stable, and I felt like 36 inches long was plenty for this experiment. So it might be hard to see, but I have shaded out the areas I wanted to avoid, so that I didn't accidentally drill dog holes where I needed the legs or the vise screw to go. And so these 3/4 inch dog holes, I think this is about as many as I could fit on here without it being ridiculous, but I think it'll still be useful. I didn't want them any closer to the edge, because I think the weakness of this experiment may lay in any motion that I have towards the front. So I feel like doing things from end to end is going to be pretty good, and working on things upright in the vise is going to be good, but I worry about it being a little tippy if you're going back to front, so I kept the dog holes more to the middle and kind of fewer. All right, so making progress here. I skipped some steps. I was risking turning this into a build video, and I don't want that yet. If this thing works out, I may make a build video. It's up on its side here because I was planing the aprons square to the top. The front side has the vise hardware installed. We got dog holes drilled. And instead of vertical dog holes, I went with some clamping holes. And I've done them at angles so that if I've got a 2-inch block clamped here, I can get 45 degrees or 22.5 degrees exactly across this way. And that just allows me to apply clamping force in some strange directions if I'm ever trying to make a funny angle glue up. All right, so that's about as much work as I'm going to do on it until I've tested it some. It's looking pretty good, feels pretty good. It is quite heavy. The body is made of pine, so it moved a little bit, making the vise screws a little hard to turn. But so far, I'm pretty happy with it. Now it's just time to test it out. I'm happy with how solid the dog holes are and the holdfasts in them. I did 3/4-inch holes on the top of my workbench here. Sometimes 3/4 on Amazon will arrive to you at 20 millimeter. They are not the same thing. A 3/4 of an inch is just over 19 millimeters. So be careful of that. And you don't want to try and use 20 millimeter holes when you've got other 3/4-inch things that go in dog holes, because there'll just be too much slack on them, I find, and they'll slide out too easily and they don't hold as well. So I've got a bunch of these that are garbage. All right, we've arrived at our first problem with planing. If you recall at the beginning of the video, I did worry about whether or not it would be too top heavy. So I tried to center the weight between the legs, and I think it is still just a little too top heavy, because when I try and take anything but the thinnest shaving off of this very soft piece of pine, the whole thing rocks in my direction. So you can see it bouncing. That's not what we want. That's in fact what we wanted to prevent. So it is either not going to be good for planing, or I do have some options where I can try and center it here and see if that works. Or the feet of the Rockwell Jawhorse have screw holes in them, and I could build a platform and I could actually stand on it to weigh it down. But we'll see how much of a hindrance this actually ends up being before I go that route. Now, lastly for today, we have working on the ends of longer pieces in this vise. This was going to be the most important improvement for my shop, as nothing else I have allows me to work very elegantly on the ends of longer pieces. So I'm pretty happy with it, but it's not perfect. I have to favor this end. This end with the single leg is a little shakier, but this works just fine. Honestly, that's so much more stable than either the Bora Caterpillar or the big old workbench that I built. All right, that's all I'm going to do with this for now. I got to use it for a while to see how it can be improved. Maybe I'll do a follow-up video or a build video if there's interest. I'm pretty happy with it. It's a good work holding solution for my space, and I can move it around pretty easily. So thanks for watching me try this out, and sorry about the mess. I'm working on it.